Hello, friends. Today I am going to take you to a journey you may not have even thought of. All through our youth, we all used to say, who wants to live a long life? I want to live a life as long as I'm fit, healthy, and enjoying myself. But as we grow older and we see people around us suffer without much recourse, we learn to resign to our fate. The question is, why to allow ourselves to reach a point where suffering will come up? Why don't we plan our lives? And once our work is finished on the planet Earth, we opt to go home as we do during school, college, office, and so on.
Interestingly, our Constitution states under Article 21 right to life with dignity. So the question arises whether there is dignity in rendering ourselves to suffering and pain, which essentially and invariably erodes dignity. The discussions are on world over, and some countries have allowed to exercise right to die as well. But as of now, one has to establish irreversible medical conditions or unbearable pain. Law world over does not allow anyone to take a call, an appointment in a distant future for a 5-minute painless departure. Another noteworthy fact is that in many places where assisted dying has been allowed, there were cases where doctors helped their patients to die, to relieve them of pain or sufferings as the doctors could not see them suffer. Only then, after punishing those doctors or acquitting them, the law eventually relented.
Well, a few years back, in 2013, when my wife and I pledged our organs, we learned that organ donors' bodies do not turn up. That point started me thinking, followed by gathering knowledge. One thing led to another, and I realized that Article 21 needs change. The law must suit the present living conditions. It is evident from the verdicts of Section 377 and 497 just recently. We believe the right to dignity has to permit an absolute ownership. This will be a recourse eventually for all the people and nations in times to come. Let's delve more on the intricacies of the subject. We do a lot of planning in life: education, career, marriage, kids. In fact, with the present medical facilities and systems, we even plan to have a baby exactly at a precise moment. We go on to plan their lives up to a point, and the cycle repeats. All along these number of years, we buy medical insurance and life insurance so as to gain longevity and secure our dependents in case of eventuality. But the real planning actually should mean deciding precise moment when to make an exit if we can, as we plan births nowadays. It may sound sacrilegious on the face of it, as we have conditioned our minds. Several thousand of years ago, such thought did prevail on this very earth. We used to decide and plan our death.
In fact, the Jains used to and still practice Salekhana or Santara to attain the ultimate destination. Jainism, which is one of the oldest religions, preach living lives with the utmost renunciation. The idea of choosing to die existed even prior to the advent of Jainism and preferred or picked up by Jains. They have been examples of people opting for Ichha, which means desirous, and Mrityu, which means death, much before.
As long as we take a narrow approach of painting this as unlawful, we may think it as a criminal thought. But if we open our minds, do not think in a narrow perspective, discuss out the subject to create another point of view and change the law, this may start to look different. What if I decide today that I will be done with all my duties and responsibilities, say at an age of 72 to 75, and there is a system where I take a medical appointment which can help me on a one-way ticket to some place, not to come back? Euthanasia, as it is called, no doubt is a complex issue against the Constitution, against legal framework, against medical ethics and oaths, against marketeers' liking, against next of the kin's desire, and therefore has to be understood and formed an opinion on each of these one by one. Stay with me, and hopefully by the end of it all, we will have a structured thought to take further. When India freed herself in 1947, our population was 33 crore or 330 million. Today it stands at 1350 million. The population density is 364 persons per square kilometer. The increase in population is over 4 times in just 70 years.
It may not be a fair comparison though. Pakistan has 227 and Bangladesh 1127 population per square kilometer. However, tucked in India, Nepal has 202 and Bhutan has 21 per square kilometer. Quite interestingly, the origin of the happiness index was coined during an interview with King Jigme Singye Wangchuk in 1972. GNH index is ascribed to Bhutan and India scores 133rd in the world. Is there not a direct correlation between population and happiness? We can see in pictorial depiction that South Asia is the largest and most densely populated landmass on Earth. If we see population density in numbers, the excess population world over is in developed countries of the size of cities, having elaborate infrastructures to handle the large numbers. The larger countries are far too poor to even implement the population control measures. In fact, if we take a look at the most populated cities, the top 15 have 4 Indian cities as per Wikipedia. One may wonder, where is the 5th one, Delhi? Evidently, the numbers are outdated. And on a large base, in India, the real growth in numbers is yet to come.
The point being, population control measures be implemented by us on a war footing basis as of yesterday. In fact, we are far too late in implementing these measures and probably still undecided. We have not formed a political will to even talk about this subject.
Second point is increasing life expectancy. From 1955 till 2015, the life expectancy in India has gone up by 66% to 68 years. it is still lower in comparison with China, Brazil, South Korea, Malaysia, and even the world average. It is certain that we will catch up. The way science and medicines are progressing, the day is not too far that we may find age expectation going out of the roof. That process will continue and should continue.
The point here is when and not if that happens, we will have to let people choose when to die. From our past records, it may take us years to change the laws then. Why don't we start reviewing the changing of laws now, rather proactively? Say one can actively choose to take assisted departure anytime after attaining average age. Next, let's take a look at what this overpopulation has done to our country and also reducing the roles of states in our lives.
The population worldwide is growing at 1.09% and growing really fast because of the large base. Today, the world population stands at 7.5 billion, and as per US Census Bureau, estimates it will reach 9.5 billion by 2050, in just 30 years from now. We all know that humans have little positive contribution to nature. In this part of the world, we have already pushed most of the animal species to the point of extinction. One must watch 2012 debate by Philip Wollen on animals should be off the menu. Can we answer very honestly as what we have done in dense mass of population in South Asia to our water bodies, plants, forests, animals? Besides which, human needs for homes, wares, transport, entertainment, security, etc. leads to consumption of materials. We do also need energy for processing all the needs and maintaining the temperatures, so we'll always be a burden on the earth resources and environment. Interestingly, Tim the Chant started per square mile to demonstrate how the world will be if all population lived like Bangladesh, India, Uganda. We'll need less than an earth to sustain entire 7.5 billion. Thereafter, like China, Costa Rica, Nepal, France, USA, more earths required, going up to 5.4 in case of UAE. The data is arrived at by studying Global Footprint Network, who are measuring impact of humans on the planet Earth since 2003. Global average is 1.7 global hectares per person, and most of these countries' global footprints are much in excess. Say, for Singapore, having footprint per person of 5.9. If all population lives like them, we'll need 3.5 Earths to sustain.
It may sound heartening that Indian sustainable averages are much lower than even one Earth. The fact is that the country needs practically everything to import and will continue to remain so. We do not have enough resources to produce our consumption, or our population is occupying and sitting on the resources as human mass, making it impossible for exploitation of our own resources. With the result, our economic fabric will keep on getting weaker and weaker in comparison, making our exports cheaper for the developed world and imports more and more costly. As a consequence, this part of the earth will pay biggest price for the sins done by the rich nations unless we make our populations manageable. It is our responsibility to not provide larger markets. Only then we will be able to improve human development indicators and provide better lives to our next generations. This leads us to second and more pertinent point of reduced roles of states pushing populations towards the local and international business mafias.
In each and every part of the world, with huge populations, the role that the state plays in the lives of people have been reducing in its reach and quality quite systematically and significantly.
In India, efforts are being done to revive some of these, but the swelling population will ensure that state will be coming short in delivering most or all of these services to the entire population to the extent it is required. These are a given in our richer counterparts. The best part to ponder over is that some of the developed world provide all of these and much more and still allow their people to choose an assisted death, not letting them suffer. While our state comes short in all of these, which are construed to be constitutional rights, we come horribly short in our timeliness of legal deliverables.
In a much acclaimed success story of India in allowing passive euthanasia, the reality behind Aruna Schonberg's death is pretty grim, to say the least. She finally died of pneumonia after 42 years of life in a vegetative state. Can we call it a dignified way of departing? We need a change in our viewpoint. It is a choice to be handed out to the individual, not to be glorified or looked down upon.
Under the circumstances and speed, seeking a constitutional change to allow euthanasia will be a prolonged battle for sure. But it has to be started at some point. It is pertinent to take a look at where we stand vis-a-vis the rest of the world. So, most of the countries allowing for euthanasia or assisted death are the ones that provide almost all the basic necessities public is desirous of. The euthanasia status in many of these is radically different than ours.
Active euthanasia is legal in the Netherlands, Belgium, Colombia, Luxembourg, and Canada. Assisted suicide is legal in Switzerland, Germany, the Netherlands, and in the US states of Washington, Oregon, Colorado, Hawaii, Vermont, Montana, Washington DC, and California. In Japan, there is tentative legal framework for allowing passive and active euthanasia. Most of these countries allowed euthanasia fairly lately, between 2002 and 2010. The most liberal euthanasia framework practiced by Belgium and Canada provides for people over the age of 18 who have terminal illness to a point when natural death is reasonably foreseeable. All these countries and many more have organizations working towards liberalizing euthanasia further. Most of these have stagnant population, mainly increasing due to immigrants. Also, the world at large is deliberating actively on the rights of other forms of life and nature and how to protect these from human invasion. India, on our part, adds 4 least populated countries' population in one day, 10 countries in a week, and 20 countries in a month, probably 40 odd countries in a year.
In thickly populated neighborhood, we have our own set of other problems. The organ demand from all over is so lucrative illegal business that countries like ours are subject to human trafficking of mass scale. The fate of old people is becoming very questionable as we progressed into the 21st century. Rapes becoming rampant. These are legal matters, but implementation of legality runs into problems when the masses swell beyond a point. Many of these issues are hushed up and we close our eyes on. What we see are just tip of the iceberg.
Living with dignity is seriously under question on many counts and will further be so in times to come. India will have to take a quantum leap to set an example for the entire region and the rest of the world to follow. Our legislative is too busy running the country, which is getting little too complicated with growing population. Tenacious issues are passed on to already too burdened judiciary. In this maze, let's try to find a way forward. Last words before moving to next steps. It is a pity that in a country where the second Prime Minister gave slogan Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, today maximum suicides are being committed by the BSF forces, way beyond killed by enemy. And more farmers commit suicide with each passing year. Something is fundamentally wrong. Are we struggling in running the country? Sticking to the subject, next steps are a mammoth task. We need to take on a war footing.
There could be added objectives to achieve, though not necessarily stated overtly, rekindling hope and faith in Jawans and Kisans in life, dousing the lust of money in the riches. Think of an inclusive growth as against family centric or company centric. If we create awareness and arrive at a mass level of acceptance, there are a few possible positive side effects also.